All right, so imagine this scenario for a second.
Okay.
You are standing at the altar, the organ is playing, the wedding march. Everyone you know and love is watching you.
Your parents, your friends.
Everyone. And you are literally mid-step, walking down the aisle to get married. And then suddenly, you feel this divine command, a literal instruction from God.
Mm.
And it's telling you to stop, turn around, and walk out. Leave the wedding, leave your partner, just go.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Most people, they finish the ceremony, they'd say, God, just give me 5 minutes to say I do, let me get the cake, and then we'll talk.
Right. Can we reschedule this whole revelation for after the honeymoon, please?
Mm-hmm.
But the source material we're looking at today, it argues that if you even ask for those 5 minutes, you have effectively failed the test of faith.
Failed it completely, and that is, that's a terrifying standard to live by.
Welcome back to The Deep Dive. Today we are wrestling with a text that demands exactly that level of, intensity. We're looking at a sermon by Reverend Myung Moon.
And this dates back to November 7th, 1982, delivered at the Belvedere Estate in New York.
The title is Sacrificing All for the Absolute Love of God. And I have to say, that word absolute is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
It really is. This isn't a text about, a conceptual love. It's not the love is patient, love is kind stuff you get on a greeting card.
No.
This is a sermon about dismantling your entire value system. So the mission of this deep dive is to really understand what Reverend Moon meant by absolute love in this specific context. And spoiler alert, it involves making profitable companies, national borders, and yes, even your own wedding secondary to a divine mission.
It's a study in total dedication. But what's so fascinating to me is how he builds up to these extreme demands. He doesn't just start there.
No, not at all. He starts with something surprisingly relatable. He starts with the clock.
The clock.
He does. He opens with this whole reflection on how we perceive time. He notes he hadn't been at Belvedere for about 40 days, and he talks about how time just seems to drag when you're separated from someone you love.
But it flies when you're with them, which is, that's a universal human experience, right? We've all been there.
Exactly. But he uses that feeling, that timelessness, to immediately pivot to the spirit world. He describes the afterlife not just as a place you go, but as a state of being.
A state of eternal happiness where aging just isn't a concept.
Right, he asks, would people living in the love of God ever pause to think about getting old?
It's an interesting psychological point. If you're perfectly content, do you even notice time passing?
Exactly. So he sets up this beautiful ideal state, this eternal, timeless love. But just as you're getting comfortable with that image, he crashes it right down to earth.
Down into the messiest, grossest part of human existence.
Mm-hmm. The diapers and dollars section, as I like to call it.
It is a jarring transition. He compares love for God to the love a parent has for an infant, but he doesn't use a clean, Gerber baby image.
Oh, no. He talks about his own daughter, Changjin Nim. He describes the reality of a baby, the drool, the runny nose.
Dirty diapers.
The dirty diapers. He's forcing the audience to look at the visceral reality of caretaking. He asks, do you love your baby only when they are clean and smiling? Of course not.
You love them through the mess. You wipe the nose. You change the diaper.
And then he flips it. He asks, have you ever felt that way for God?
That's the challenge. He's asking, is your faith sanitary? Is it something you only practice when things are neat and you're in your Sunday best?
Or are you willing to deal with the dirty diapers of the mission? He's arguing that absolute love isn't about sitting in a pew. It's about getting your hands dirty.
And speaking of dirty hands, he takes that same logic and applies it to how people pray. This part, actually. It's a brilliant deconstruction of religious transaction.
The vending machine approach.
Totally. He points out that most people pray saying, God, please help me. Give me this, fix that.
Yeah, you put in a prayer, you expect a blessing to pop out.
And Moon just says that is completely backwards. If you truly love someone, your instinct is to give to them, not to take from them.
He calls it Bigger's logic. He's saying that true love is about pouring yourself out, not gathering things in. And he gets very, very specific with the math on this.
Oh, the calculator comes right out. He asks, if you give $100 and you expect $100 back, what is that?
It's a loan. A business deal, zero sum.
Right. He says if you're calculating the return, if you're wondering about your ROI on a donation, then your love is conditional. And then he drops this massive number.
Do you love God more than $100 million?
Which in 1982 is an astronomical amount of money. It's a lot today, but back then, that's empire building money.
For sure. But the point isn't really the number. It's the comparison.
Yeah.
He's forcing you to weigh your spiritual commitment against your material desires.
He's asking, is there a price tag where you would sell out?
Exactly. And that's how we move them from that transactional mindset to, well, to an unconditional one.
Okay, so we've established the baseline, love the mess, and give without expecting a receipt. But this is where the sermon really starts to climb the ladder of escalation.
Yeah, from dirty diapers to global economics.
And corporate takeovers. This is the test of ownership. He throws out a hypothetical. Suppose you owned a huge, profitable company.
Or you were the king of an entire nation.
Right. And God asks you to sell it all and dedicate the money to him. Could you do it?
And he even acknowledges the practical problem. He admits that if you tried to sell a whole country, the citizens would scream, "No, we don't want to be sold."
Which is true. You can't just liquidate a nation.
But Moon isn't interested in logistics or labor laws. He's testing the internal state of the owner. He says, there has not been one single person who has had a love of such magnitude for God.
He's saying we all have a limit. We all have a line where we say, okay, God, you can have my Sundays, maybe 10%,
Right.
but don't touch my company.
Don't touch my assets. And that brings us right back to the wedding. Because for most people, the ultimate limit isn't money.
It's family. It's love.
The wedding march, hypothetical, is the emotional peak here. By suggesting you should walk out mid-aisle, he is attacking the ultimate human idol, the family.
It sounds almost anti-family, which is so ironic because the family is usually central to his entire theology.
Seems like a contradiction, doesn't it? But he frames it through this really interesting metaphor of the PhD for heaven.
Let's unpack that, because I think that's the key to understanding why he thinks walking out of your own wedding is okay.
Right. He basically explains that life on earth is just school. You go from kindergarten to elementary to high school. He sees our life here as a preparatory program.
A PhD course for the spirit world.
Exactly. And the goal of school isn't to live in the classroom forever. It's to learn the lesson and then graduate.
So if life is just a classroom, then all the things we value here, the diploma, the career, the house, even the wedding ceremony, they're not the final reality.
They're just props, school supplies, and you don't worship your pencils.
So the passing grade for this PhD isn't how successful you were or how beautiful your wedding was.
The passing grade is, did you develop a love for God that overrides everything else?
That completely reframes the whole walking out of the wedding thing. If the wedding is just a play in the school theater, then walking out when the principal calls isn't a tragedy.
It's obedience. It's realizing that the play isn't the most important thing happening. He's asking them to value the principal God more than the play itself.
Now, this idea of absolute obedience isn't just abstract for Moon. He grounds it in a very specific historical context. We need to talk about the modern Exodus.
Yes, we absolutely cannot ignore the date. 1982, the Cold War is, well, it's freezing cold. Reagan's in the White House. The Soviet Union is the evil empire.
And Moon takes that biblical story of the Israelites leaving Egypt and just overlays it right onto the 1980s world map.
And he uses some very clever wordplay. He talks about the Red Sea.
Right. For the Israelites, the obstacle was the literal Red Sea, the water.
But for the Unification Church in 1982, Moon says the Red Sea is the red ideology. It's communism.
So the wilderness isn't a desert, it's the whole world stage.
And Canaan, the promised land, isn't Israel.
It's Moscow.
It's Moscow, the capital of the Soviet Union, the heart of the enemy at that time.
He is explicitly telling his followers that their spiritual mission has a physical destination. They are supposed to march into the heart of the communist world and establish God's nation.
This is not pray for peace. This is, we are going to take over the ideology of the Soviet Union.
That is incredibly ambitious and dangerous.
Extremely. And he knows it. He talks about the members who are already there. He calls them spies for God.
That phrase just jumped out at me, spies for God. It sounds like a movie title, but he's talking about real people living in communist countries in 1982.
People risking prison or worse because they can't practice their faith openly. They're underground. But look at how he uses that image. He turns it into a guilt trip for his American audience.
Right, who are sitting safely in New York. He basically asks, how would you like to be a spy for God?
He's saying, if they can do it under threat of death, why are you complaining about fundraising? Why are you complaining about sleeping in a sleeping bag?
It's a challenge to their comfort. The spy is the ultimate standard of dedication.
It is. He wants them to adopt that mindset of a spy, even if they're living in America.
And this militaristic language just runs through the whole text. Spies, soldiers. He calls himself the general.
The military structure is explicit. The church is an army, and it needs to maintain straight lines, no stragglers. In 1982, he is absolutely acting as a wartime general.
There's one metaphor he uses about a ship that I found honestly a little terrifying. It really drives home this demand for blind trust.
The cargo hold metaphor.
Yeah. He puts the followers down in the dark.
He says you might have to dwell down in the cargo area and couldn't see anything outside. The idea is that only the Captain Moon has the compass. Only he sees the destination.
That requires a suspension of judgment that is just. It's hard to wrap your head around. You're in the pitch black, you're on the wave, you have no idea where you're going, and you just have to trust that the captain isn't steering you into an iceberg.
That is his definition of absolute faith. It's the willingness to be in the dark. It's trusting the leader's vision more than your own eyes. He even clarifies the chain of command. If the general is away, the soldiers obey the platoon leaders.
A good soldier knows the general's intent even when he's not in the room.
But he doesn't just demand this from a pedestal. He tries to prove he's earned it. He uses his own stories to say, look, I'm not asking you to do anything I haven't done myself.
He brings up going to North Korea. He was on his way to buy rice for his starving family. His wife and child were literally hungry, and God said go, and he just turned around.
He let his family go hungry to follow the command. It links right back to the diaper analogy, doesn't it? The mess of a hungry family didn't stop the mission.
And then there's the deer blood story.
We have to talk about the deer blood. It's such a specific, weird detail in the text.
I had to reread it. I thought I was imagining it.
It's so vivid. He recounts a time someone told him drinking the warm blood of a deer was good to do. Probably some kind of folk remedy for strength.
And his reaction wasn't, ew, no, that's gross.
Not at all. He drank it. But listen to his reasoning. It wasn't about health. He says, suppose God was watching me, observing that I could do anything challenging for the sake of his providence. But I faltered when it came to drinking the blood of deer.
So it was a test of his own limits.
It was a yuck factor test. If he let his own disgust stop him, he'd be putting his comfort above a divine challenge. He's arguing a servant of God can have no boundaries. No, I won't do that.
Whether it's drinking blood, marching to Moscow, or leaving a wedding.
The answer has to be yes. It's about stripping away the ego completely. I don't get to decide what's gross. I don't get to decide what's reasonable.
And he contrasts this do-anything attitude with the attitude of his audience. He seems to think the Americans in front of him have gotten soft.
They've gotten too used to the good life. He loves a good pun, even if it's, a bit of a dad joke. He says America sounds like a merry car.
The merry car, like a joyride.
He sees Americans as people who just want to drive around in beautiful Cadillacs, having a good time. He's critiquing the American dream directly.
He implies that comfort is a trap.
He warns them against getting cozy. He brings up Lot's wife from the Bible, the woman who looked back at Sodom and turned into a pillar of salt.
The looking back is fatal.
He says when he's told to leave his estates, he just goes forward. He even says if his wife calls out, look back here, he tells her, no, you must follow me.
It's that constant forward momentum. The destination is victory, and for him, victory is physical, it's territorial.
That's the key distinction. He says God can only be truly victorious when he's savored. He can claim victory on the physical level. It's not enough to be right in your heart. You have to win the world. You have to take Moscow.
Which is why a merry car, that complacency, that desire to just enjoy life is so dangerous to him.
It threatens the whole mission. If the soldiers stop to enjoy the ride, the war is lost.
So let's step back and look at this whole text. From the dirty diapers to the deer blood to the spies in Moscow. What's the cohesive message here? If you're sitting in that hall in 1982, what do you walk away with?
I think the core message is the spy mindset. When Moon talks about being a spy for God, he isn't just talking about people in communist countries. He means everyone.
How so?
He says you must have this kind of determination, even when you are kissing your bride or when you mothers are nursing your babies. That's the takeaway.
So if you're a spy, there's no off-duty. You're always undercover behind enemy lines, and the enemy lines are just the secular world.
Right. So every mundane action, kissing your wife, feeding your kid, it's just cover for the real mission. You're never just dad or husband. You're agent of God pretending to be dad.
That turns life into a pressure cooker. There's no room for just being. Everything becomes instrumental. Everything is for the war effort.
And it brings us back to that PhD for heaven concept. That seems to be the philosophical anchor for all of this.
It does. If you really buy into this source material, if you accept that life on Earth is just a schooling process, then the value of everything around us it changes completely.
It's a radical devaluation of the present moment. in favor of a future reality.
Or a radical revaluation. If Earth is school, then success isn't becoming the CEO.
Success is being willing to lose the CEO job if the principal asks you to.
That's the provocative thought I'm left with. We spend our whole lives trying to build things, careers, families, homes. But this text asks, what if those are just the test question?
Right. If we view life as a simulation or a school, does a successful life look completely different from a faithful life? According to Reverend Moon in 1982, they're opposites. Success is the willingness to lose everything for the command.
Even if that command leads you to drink deer blood or march on Moscow?
Even then, especially then.
It's a heavy, heavy text. It challenges the very idea of what it means to be good or faithful. But that's what we do here. We go deep into the source, no matter how intense it gets. That's a wrap for this deep dive into sacrificing all for the absolute love of God. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.